Hello, my name is Deborah Anderson, the Black Woman Animator, coming back to you with another video. And this video is stories from my career as a Black woman. Now, not all of these stories will be because I was Black or because I was a woman. Some of them will be because I look younger than I am. Some of them are because I'm a Northerner living in the South. Some of them are because of my direct personality. Some of them are because I was a foreigner, and then some of them are because of the incompetencies of the people around me. So, or a combination of all of them or some of them. So I'll first start with a story from when I worked in South Korea. So in 2010, on April 1st, 2010, my maternal grandmother passed away. And so I was getting ready for school, and my dad called me right before I was leaving to go to my middle school to teach. And he told me that my grandmother passed away. So that was a big shocker, news to get before work. And so I didn't really have time to process it. If I had received the call maybe in the evening, I would have had time to sleep on it and then decide to not go to school that day. But because I got the news maybe 10 or 15 minutes before I walked out the door, I just went to school anyway. So I came to school and I told my main co-teacher about my grandmother passing and kind of waited for a reaction from her. She didn't really give a reaction, so I asked, would I have to teach my classes today? So she went and said she was going to go and speak to my other co-teachers to see what they said. So she came back, and I had the same co-teacher for 3 classes, and that co-teacher said I didn't have to teach, but there was another co-teacher, Mrs. Young, who said that she felt like I would be okay to teach her class. So I didn't have to go to a couple classes. I finally went to Miss Young's class, walked to the classroom, got into the front of the class, and was very emotional. Because I was emotional, I couldn't project my voice, so I couldn't tell the class to quiet down or anything, so that class was pretty much being rowdy. And for some reason that day, Miss Young was late to the class, and so it was maybe 10 minutes or so before she came. And because I had broke down crying in front of the students, they finally sent me home like a period or two before the end of the school day. And so that was a middle school that I taught Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I don't know if it was a Friday. I don't know what day it was, but I told myself that if my high school did the same thing, that I was leaving Korea. But luckily my high school had more empathy for me and didn't make me come in that Monday, Tuesday of the next week. And the big thing about them making me teach was that in the previous semester, one of my co-teachers, his grandfather passed and he got 3 days off. So I knew there was a precedent already set for when a family member passes. It doesn't have to be your mother, father, sister, brother. It can be a grandparent. But because I was not Korean, I guess I didn't have emotions or anything. So they didn't treat me the same way as my other co-teacher. Another story is an interesting thing of, you don't think as a 20-something-year-old person that you would ever have to teach someone 20 years older than you something. But alas, we live in America where these things happen. So I was corresponding with a coworker. She was trying to get me a professor spot at a local community college teaching animation. So in this instance, she was actually trying to help me, and she was trying to introduce. She wanted to introduce me to the person who could help me get the job or get a class started. And so she had already worked at this community college, and so she was just like kind of pinch hitting for me and using her experience already working there to say, oh, I vouch for this person. So I'll read you, we were having a conversation, and I'll read you what she said at some point in the conversation. She said, okay, I've sent an email to this person. It might help you get the gig if we say I'll work with you on the curriculum. I'm more of a known quantity to her, as opposed to some unknown pissant kid with nappy hair. And then in parentheses she puts, that would be you, or was until recently. So at first it was just like, what? Like, who says this to a person? And so I had to take some time to calm down in order to address it with her. So through what I said, she was introducing me to somebody, and she was like, well, I'm more known, so if we have to say that I'll work with you on the curriculum, then that will be that. And then she says, unlike some unknown pissant kid, which at that point I was like 26, and then with nappy hair, and then she, just in case I don't know that she's talking about me, she's like, that would be you. And then she says, or until recently. So the until recently was, I used to have a big afro and never left the house unkept. I always, because I'm naturally like a perfectionist, so I would always either have a perfectly coiffed afro that was picked out to perfection and patted down, or wore my hair in twists. Or if I would wear my hair in like the little puff where you put the little headband and try not to get headaches. So I never looked like crazy, at least to black people. And then I cut my hair off, so that was when I first went short. And so I guess my short hair isn't nappy. Not really sure about that assessment, but that's the context of her comment. So me, a 20-something-year-old black woman, has to calm myself down and then take time to address a 40-something-year-old white woman and tell her why it is inappropriate to say something like that to a person. And essentially tell her, you're lucky it was me, because if it was some other black woman, you probably would have got punched in the face. So I don't know if I said it like that, but that was the gist of what I was trying to get across to her. Like, you can't just say that to people and think it's okay. So yeah. Living in America, you have to teach people these things. It's crazy. Another awesome story is when I was manager, I would take these things called non-smoke breaks, because I realized quickly that the people that smoke would like take 500 breaks a day. And I feel like the people who don't smoke, I could at least take 2 breaks each day. So I would take my non-smoke breaks at 10:30 and 3. p.m. So one day, I go on my morning non-smoke break, come back and see my department in a little powwow, and my supervisor is telling my employees that they are firing 3 people and moving 1 person to another department. So essentially, the people I manage are finding out before me that my department is going down from 11 to 7 people. And we still have to manage the 3 projects that we were managing. So I go to my supervisor at some point and ask him, why was I not included in any of the behind the scenes of this decision? And he's told me it was a high level decision. And then I asked him, well, don't you think at least you should have told me before you told the people I manage? And he's like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Because after that happened, I have people who are kind of going a little bit crazy because this is a sudden decision. And so when they come to me and ask me, did I know this was going to happen? Me saying no can be taken 2 ways in my eyes. It could be that I'm lying and I didn't know that it was going to happen, or that I didn't actually know that it was going to happen, and the people above me didn't respect me enough to tell me it was going to happen, so why should they respect me? So when I was talking to my supervisor, I was like, telling him this. He's like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. And I'm like, can you tell them that I didn't know that this was going to happen? He said he was going to do it, but he never did it, so I had to do it myself. Like, I just had to take the chance and be transparent and tell people that I was managing that I didn't know that was going to happen. Another thing I dealt with that particular supervisor is being in my position, going above and beyond, and because I did some research on like asking for a raise, and that you're supposed to do it. You can kind of approach your supervisor before review time, because by review time they've probably already made financial decisions already. So you need to like go to them a little bit before so that they can be in talks with anybody who needs to make that decision. And so I went to my supervisor. I pretty much came up with a list of everything that I was doing above and beyond my job description, and asked if I can get a raise. And he essentially said no, and it would suck if you would have to quit. So that's when I realized that job was just like working at McDonald's, and I was expendable, and they didn't care. Like, they just would train people to do the job, and you didn't have any kind of importance to them. And then to later find out after you become the manager that for one particular guy, you're making maybe $3,000 more a year than he is, and you manage him. And that is to say, ask for what you want, because that guy asked for it and they gave it to him. I asked for peanuts because I didn't know about salary negotiation, and I stupidly asked for the same salary I had in Korea, but the cost of living in Korea is lower. So I could make a living in Korea with that salary, but not in America. So that was my fault. But ask for what you want, because you're never going to make a big jump in salary. They're never going to like just give you 15% more or anything. It's always going to be like a 1 to 3% more raise. So if you can't afford to live at the salary they're presenting. Unless you're living with a significant other or your parents, do not take that salary. So that's a tip. Another quick story, which was just like, okay. So we went to a karaoke spot as we had like a little company retreat, went to a karaoke spot, and I signed up for karaoke. Fun fact, this particular time I went to karaoke, the person I literally had to wait 2 or 3 hours for my name to come up. And the person who sang right before me was Joshua Ledette, who either won a season of American Idol or got into at least the top 2 or 3 of American Idol, and tore down the house, tore down the place, whatever the saying is. And then they called me next, and I was like, man, I waited for 3 hours. Like, I'm singing, I don't care. And so my go-to karaoke songs are Elton John songs, and mostly because I'm a black person and I feel like people would expect me to sing Beyonce or something like that. And so I purposely choose Elton John to sing in public. And so I sung the song Crocodile Rockin', and I had some friends in town, so they were my background dancers and stuff like that. And then I finished the song, I go back upstairs, and one of my coworkers is like, wow, you picked an Elton John song to sing. And I'm like, yeah. And they were like, and you knew all the words too. And I'm just like, why would I pick a song that I didn't know the words to? That doesn't make any sense. And why wouldn't I know the words to that song? Pray tell. So that was something. I was just like, why wouldn't I know Elton John? And then at some point I tried to address why my supervisor was constantly kind of going to my white male coworker, and he said, oh, it's because he's more of an extrovert. And just to tell you how ridiculous that statement is, when I told my other coworkers what he said, they were like, that person is an extrovert? Like, this person literally kept to himself, didn't talk to people, like, was basically a loner. People don't even realize how much we talked, because he was cool. He just didn't like to talk a lot. I mean, I don't like to talk a lot. And I'm actually an introvert, but at work, I actually talk to people. I talk to most of the people at work. I go sit down, have conversations with them. I'm invited out to lunch and stuff with different groups of people. So for him to say that this person was more of an extrovert was a bold-faced lie. Additionally, when I first started working there, I would always go talk to my supervisor about his kids and his life and all this stuff. So there are things that I know about my supervisor that my coworker absolutely does not know, because I know for a fact he would never ask any of these questions. And so I just was like, I had gotten to a point where I just stopped trying to advocate for myself, because when I get upset, I start crying, and you're not supposed to cry at work. And so when I get upset, it's like that meme where I'm not crying because I'm sad, I'm crying because I'm trying not to kill you. That's the kind of crying that I do. So I just started ignoring a bunch of stuff because I didn't want to address it, because I didn't want to hear what my supervisor had to say. So let me just stop addressing things and just do my job. And then just an annoying thing is working at a company in the South where, and ingrained in their psyche is the black codes. And if you're not familiar with the black codes, it was just a bunch of rules that black people had to adhere to, that white people created. And one of them is that more than 3 black people can't congregate in one spot without it being suspicious. So at this job, it's like every single time there's a group of 3 or more black people, my white coworkers had to say something. Like, they can't help themselves. One time I'm standing with the 2 or 3 other black women in front of my supervisor's door. So what are we talking about that is that bad? And one of my white female coworkers comes by like, "Oh, you guys look mischievous." How do we look mischievous? I think we were actually talking about something work related. In what way do people dressed in professional dress talking about work look mischievous? And apparently, I thought my face was neutral, but then somebody told me later that my face looked crazy after she said that, and I'm like, dang, I need to work on that, but I don't know how to, because I can't control my face. If I think my face looked regular, and then my face looked crazy, I don't know how to work on that. There's another coworker, every time I pass her in the hallway, she had to say something black related. Like, what is with people? Like, you don't have to say black things to talk to black people. Like, we do regular stuff too. I remember one time it was like almost all the black people in the office converged at the same spot at the same time. I know I had just got done talking to one of my coworkers, and then I had forgot something. I'm like, oh, let me tell her this. And so her and another black coworker were walking down, and I was trying to catch up with them. And then another coworker was coming from this way, another coworker was coming from this way, and it was like almost all the black people accidentally converged on one spot at the same time. And it was kind of funny because we were like, oh no, there's too many black people, and we started running in different directions. And it's kind of sad that you have to do that, but the fact that happened on accident was crazy. But there's been times, I know there was a time where I was standing with 2 black male coworkers, and somebody said something, and I asked them what they were saying, and they was like, don't even worry about it. So I know she said something stupid, but it's just like, and it's different coworkers. Like, why do y'all have to say something every time? Like, just leave it alone. I don't understand what looks so suspicious about black people congregating and talking. Like, do they think we're planning a revolution at work? Like, we're usually just talking, we're just shooting the breeze. We're not really talking about Amazon Prime Day, we're talking about Black Friday, we're talking about food. Like, it's really not that serious. And for several different coworkers, white coworkers, to have to make a comment every single time they see a group of black people talking at work borders on ridiculous. If you have any stories to share, please put them down below. Like, so I know it's real. Comment and tell me how you feel. Subscribe to seal the deal, and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. I will see you in the next video.